really into black tank with 101. Okay, so we're gonna go on to water systems. Has everybody de-winterized their units already, getting ready for the big camp season? Okay. It's up to you. It depends on where you, mine's de-winterized all year. But, are we good to go?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I got hand signals going over here like we were a professional football team giving me signals. And more than likely, and if I say this, we'll probably have the hardest freeze we've ever had in March. We're gonna have another, like Grandpa said, never plant your flowers until Mother's Day. We're gonna have another night of freeze or so, but I don't think we're gonna have those 3 and 4 nights in a row, which usually causes a hard freeze. So a little bit of a freeze isn't gonna hurt your unit. If you don't plan on using it, leave it for another month. But right about now is when we're getting a ton of people in wanting de-winterizes, where we get them all ready to go again. We do a spring tune-up, and during that we will usually, you can pay us to do a spring tune-up, which includes basically checking all your batteries, all your plumbing system, your lights, your charging system, your batteries. We go through and do we have a whole list of inspections we do for that. So if you want to de-winterize now, great. If not, it's not going to hurt. But if you do, I don't think we're going to get cold enough again this year to constitute a... Okay, does anybody have any questions on de-winterizing? If you haven't and you think you have some questions to help you, well, that's easy. You do? Excellent.
Did we tell you that we charge $1 per question?
Uh-oh. We have an ATM, right? No. A lot of people in this room have. No, right now would be a great time to sanitize. That's on here. That was the next thing to talk about.
As well?
Yeah, through everything.
Okay, so once I flush out all the antifreeze and run water back into my water tank and then just let it go into the hot water heater with the bleach in it and then drain everything again?
Yes.
Okay, I got it.
Her question is about sanitizing the freshwater tanks. An important thing to do. You fill your freshwater tank so you can go on a camp trip. I do. I fill mine even if I'm going to be at a park where they have water. I got caught once at Waterloo. It was 98 degrees outside one August, and they decided to have a transformer somewhere, believe it or not, in Lebanon blow up. So we spent 2 days with no power, and of course Waterloo's on a pump, so we had no power, no water. It's not the end of the world, but I have a generator and I have batteries. So I thought to myself, I have this big fifth wheel, why wasn't I carrying 50 gallons of water? So I have water in my unit, and usually never use 2 gallons of it because I plug in wherever I go to water from the park. So that water sits in there. So I try to, every 2 or 3 months, drain it out and add more. But what you're not doing is getting your water completely out of that tank. When they put a spin fitting in the bottom of the tank, which is done by friction, the bottom of your tank, I'm going to switch it up and go to orange. The bottom of your tank's like that. They spin a fitting in here, which is half-inch, it's about an inch around, half-inch fitting. They spin it right in here. So when you're pulling water out of your fresh tank, well, you drain your fresh tank, which is in a drain out the bottom. Well, the spin fitting has a lip on it. So out of a 40-gallon tank, you're going to have a gallon or 2 of water that never gets out of the tank. So you have a gallon of bad water. 3 months from now, you add 39 gallons of fresh water. It mixes in, but eventually there's a percentage of that water that's old, stale water. The worst thing you can do is leave this open, this drain, never put water in it, because again, you have that little bit of water, it sits in there. And because it's open to the atmosphere, you start growing a pond in here. We've actually had fresh tanks come in where we've had to, we had one we took pictures of. Guy lived in full-timer in Florida, purchased from us, went to Florida for a whole year, came back, and he couldn't figure out why when he turned his, he filled his fresh tank, decided to one day, turned his faucet on, and this green slime was pouring out of everything. It was actually mold. I mean, it was swamp mold. Went through his whole system. When you drain it, don't put the cap on or close the valve or however you...
So winterizing, you don't want to leave that cap off?
During the winter, it's not too bad. It's that summer, it's that humid, hot, starts growing in there. So by sanitizing your tank, you can stop that from ever happening. By when you de-winterize, or once a year, every 3 months, depending on how often Dan thinks. I do mine usually once to twice a year. You're going to take bleach and put in your fresh tank. That amount also is up to debate. I put a couple cups, Dan puts like 15 gallons. Okay, I think he uses, you say a full gallon or a half gallon you use?
Well, I use a gallon.
Okay, he uses, I use a couple cups.
It's a buck, you know, it's a buck.
I use a couple cups. The main reason I only use a couple cups is once you put that bleach in there, you're going to fill your tank, so you've got 40 or 35 to 50 gallons of this bleach water mix. Then you're going to go inside, turn on the shower, the waters, in the kitchen, bathroom, flush your toilet, get all that bleach through the whole system. Let it sit there a while, hour, two, of 99% of that bleach water. You're going to fill it with fresh water. Start running this water back through all your stuff until you get rid of that bleach smell. You got to do that about twice to get it to the point where when you're running hot water, you don't smell a little bleach. Bleach, it will not kill you. It does not. It's in just about everything made today is bleach. So if you have a little bit of a smell, it's not going to hurt you. Dan now likes to get rid of that bleach smell. He calls it sweetening the tank or sweetening the... Yeah. He uses vinegar. He then puts a bottle of vinegar and does this again with vinegar to get rid of the bleach smell. I prefer bleach smell over vinegar smell. But I've never liked pickles. So it's not a bad thing to do. So that brings us to this. When you're winterizing or de-winterizing, at some point, you're going to want to wash out your hot water tank. Unless you have a tankless hot water heater or water heater on demand, the bottom of a water heater, drawing pictures again. He never draws pictures, and I have a feeling he's wonderful at it. Your water tank, you're going to have a drain about here. When you drain that, this much water stays in the bottom. Well, all the hard waters, all the impurities, everything, if you don't have a filter system that goes through the system, winds up in the bottom of this hot water heater. A magnesium, zinc rod that goes in your plug to capture these hard waters. Plus, if you have an aluminum tank, it stops electrolysis from happening inside your tank. It will catch. So we've had a lot of people come in and say, something's terribly wrong with my water heater. I took out my plug and this white toothpaste looking stuff oozed out, and it stinks. It's just really bad water. Everything is collected in this low point. So you can take this washout, hook it to your garden hose. After you've pulled your plug out, stick it in there. Don't wear your favorite loafers. Turn it on and back and forth, and you'll see it looks like a vanilla milkshake start to come out. It's pretty bad. I mean, it can all over the place. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just hard waters, calcification. hose it off the driveway, and you're good to go. Where we know exactly when to use this is when somebody comes in also and says, whenever I use hot water, my water stinks like sulfur, or grandpa's old well water, or it's because that stuff in the bottom stinks. So we charge you a half hour, we wash it out, put the plug back in, a new anode, and you're good to go. So usually when you're getting ready for spring, that's the best time to do a lot of this stuff. Wash your tank, sweeten your freshwater tank, get everything ready to go so you're 100% camping. Because I can guarantee you, if it's going to go wrong, it's never going to go wrong in your driveway. It's always when you're camping. Yeah.
If you're winterized by blowing out your lines, would you still have water in your hot water heater?
Yep. No matter what you do, you're not going to get rid of that water in the bottom. That water's always going to be there. Even your water heaters at home, usually that's what rots out a home water heater is the bottom petcock where you hook a hose to drain it is usually that high up off the bottom. They do that for a reason, because all that stuff's collecting in the bottom of your water heater. Questions about tank sanitizing, bleaching, pickle juice? Right back there.
Does your tuneup do the sanitizing when we?
No.
No, you don't do this.
No, we basically just inspect, clean. We don't sanitize the tanks because it does require so much time. Because most of the time you're just standing there watching the tank fill, but you don't usually ever walk away from a tank, fill situation of any tank. So our technicians have to climb around, fill, drain, fill, drain. It's 120, it's an hour's worth of labor that most people can do on their own. Pretty easy. No stupid questions.
All right, when you sanitize your water system and you run it all through your lines, and they even recommend to drive the RV around so it splashes around in there, but I don't continue to do that. But then once you've let it sit for the 4 hours or overnight, is it okay just to drain your tank again? Just open the valves and drain it, and then you don't fill up your gray tank. And then refill it, flush it all through again, and
I might have missed something there.
all right, my water tank's like 30 gallons. My
Okay.
gray tank is 40 gallons. So if I run all that water from my water tank through my lines and run it until the bleach is all out of it, I'm going to fill up my gray tank. So it's okay to just open up and drain your water tank again once you've run it through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to run all the water out of your fresh tank into the gray tank. You just want to run enough water out of your fresh tank so that you can smell the bleach coming out of the faucet.
Okay, and
Then you know that whole line is full of bleach.
And then the same would be true for your hot water heater. If you let that water run into your hot water heater, you just pull the plug and drain it again.
Yep, and then add more fresh water and just keep running it through until it's all smells good.
When you're doing your hot water tank flush out, can you add vinegar just to your hot water heater?
No, you want it on both lines.
You want to run it through the line?
Just pour a bottle in your fresh tank and add water to it and fill it up.
Yeah, see, the vinegar would help dissolve some of that buildup in the bottom of your tank also.
It could. Hopefully you don't have any buildup in the bottom of your fresh.
Not yet.
It may in the bottom of your hot water heater.
That's what I'm using.
Yeah.
Hot water.
Yep. Yeah, because it's an acid. Right. No, you got to put it in your tank to run it through the hot water heater.
I was wondering, you were talking about the, is it an iode rod? The rod that goes in the hot.
Right.
On these type of tanks on motorhomes and trailers and stuff, I thought in a home one, it went down the center from bottom to top type of thing. But in these type of tanks, do they go just across the bottom, sort of?
The anode, it actually replaces, it is your drain plug. Goes in from the front towards the rear right at the bottom.
And so you replace those each time? Or not?
when you pull them out every year to look at them, as far as replacing, we get a lot of people that come in and want a new one because it's starting to get etched and part of it's eaten off. It's still a good anode rod. They start to deteriorate pretty fast, but depending on where you go, you hang around in Oregon, you're pretty safe. You start going to Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, they can get eaten up pretty fast.
Okay.
So usually when you winterize is when you pull that plug. It's an excellent opportunity to check it.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. What do you want to add to that? Then I'll ask more questions.
You know, you're doing a great job. This young man's got a question on.
Do all hot water tanks have the rod in?
No.
'Cause I don't think mine does.
Suburban, I always get this backwards. Because one is aluminum, one is a glass line.
Atwood is the aluminum. It does not, the Suburbans are they're designed a lot more like your home. It's a steel tank with a glass lining.
liner.
And so they put that anode rod in there because they don't want the electrolysis to start eating on faucets and things like that if we didn't.
So if it's the other type, it doesn't have that anode rod?
It doesn't, but you can buy one. They do sell a shorter version because of the way the plug goes in. If you tried to put the long one in, it would catch on the side of the tank. So they do sell one for each one. One is a real short one is longer.
Well, how come it didn't come with like that?
It's the manufacturer.
So the answer is on the Atwood, it's the one that's 16 wide, 12 high. The Suburban is 12 and a half by 12 and a half. Excuse me, the answer to your question is Suburban is concerned about their tank, and they have a really good tank. Atwood says, well, we've got an aluminum tank, it's going to fail in a few years anyway. So they just let the tank be the sacrifice instead of the anode rod. So yeah, we sell a short one that is for the for the Atwoods, and if you put that in, you won't get that pitting in the bottom of your tank. And usually when the Atwoods fail, if it's not the ignition module, it's pitting in the bottom of the tank around the weld. And if you use the small anode rod, that it'll extend the life.
Yep. Just like aluminum boats, most of them have a zinc plate you can put on them to cause the
I'm
I
sorry.
just lost it. The zinc plate on an aluminum boat.
Yeah, hull savers.
They call them hull saver. But if you don't have that on there and you go in the ocean a lot, the corrosion eats the aluminum. If you put the hull saver zinc plate on there, the corrosion eats that away instead of the aluminum.
And you could be out in the ocean, and I can tell you from firsthand experience, if you don't use a hull saver and you're out in the ocean a lot, and you have heat exchangers on your exhaust manifolds, next thing you know, you got a hole in your manifold, and that's a long walk back home from 10 miles out in the ocean.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Any more questions about fresh tank? You better hang around out back.
You're running up quite a tab, I tell you. There you go.
How do we know if we need an anode rod in our hot water heater? You can put one in any hot water heater?
You can. They sell an anode rod for either one.
So, and that would just help extend the life of your hot water heater?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, I'll look that later.
Yeah, you have to see which one you have, and then you can come in and ask the guys, and they have them hanging here. Somebody back over here had.
I never had the water hooked up in my fifth wheel, and I just finally got it hooked up yesterday. When I turned the faucets on in the bathroom, the water was brown that was coming out. I don't have hot water because I'm out of propane. So where is that? Is that sediment is that something that's coming out from the hot water heater? Because I might have had it on hot when I turned it on. Is
That could be coming from anywhere, more than likely the hot water heater. Just because if you haven't had water in it for a while, whatever was in there.
Just the water that you guys put in and you have in storage is the water.
Yeah, because see, when we do a prep and a walk, we put water in all the units so that when you leave, you're ready to go camping. So if it went into storage right after that and it's set for a long time, your water can get a color to it. You're gonna wanna drain that out, put some fresh water in your tank, get some fresh water going through it.
Okay. Even if it's not gonna be used?
If it's not gonna be used, you gotta get the water out and then put some bleach in it to get whatever's going on in there to stop, and then drain it out, put the plug in, then you're good for a year.
I have a question that goes back to what we talked about before, because of the fact that I'm not planning on taking my fifth wheel anywhere. Does that mean, like, I should just go down to the nearest left swab and buy new tires when I start to use it? And you were talking about winterizing and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have a vehicle to bring it here, so, how would
What you're gonna wanna do is get real friendly with a portable RV, portable RV
I did.
guy.
I called that guy, and he doesn't seem very friendly, but he said he would come out. And he was telling me how much he charges and everything, and he kept saying, "You can't afford me," but how does he know that?
Well, I don't know who you called, but there's 2 or 3 in town.
Okay, well, maybe I
But
should.
yeah, believe it or not, full-timing in an RV costs you more usually than if you're
Well, I don't
camping.
actually live in it full-time, but it's gonna be on my property and getting something different, but I have to buy a truck first.
Sounds like you might want to get a truck. This guy's going to be expensive.
Well, yeah, the other thing is that my driveway, they had a heck of a time getting it in there, and so I don't feel like I have the kind of skills that the guy that was delivering it from here had, and so would have to figure out a way to change my driveway and everything if I was going to use it, so.
Yeah. Sounds like you've got a whole bunch of little issues that we could help you with part of.
Okay. Well, I'm good at problem solving. I get the job done eventually. I might have to do a little hound dog when I get there.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, if we are done with, no, we're not.
See, he's in a big hurry today. He keeps saying that. If we're done,
So, if you're hooked up to city water, does it go into the holding tank and then through the system?
no.
So you'd have to clean each system separately?
That little section where you hook your city water to, if you have your fresh tank, this is the side, and you hook your city to it, you have a water pump. Your tank's here. Trying to get this right. Goes out here. Your water pump is on this side. Your city fill is going to come and go upstream of your water pump. So that when you turn your faucet on, it pressurizes the system this direction to your faucets and everything. It bypasses this. Your water pump keeps the valving in your water pump keeps the water from going back into your tank. We do hear people, especially in the spring, or depending on where you camp, there's all sorts of things that will come in and say, when I hook to water, my fresh tank fills up. Slowly, but we got up over this morning and there was water coming out the fresh water fill hose. We instantly know there's only one way that water can get into that tank, and that is past your pump. Unless you have a $2 million motorhome that's got multiple pumps and multiple tanks, we're going to go right to here. We're going to take this side off. We're going to put a paper towel under it, turn on your city water, and see if it's dripping. If it is, then we sell you a new water pump, charge you a half hour to an hour to put it in, and you're all fixed. So it is here. So when you do that sweetening thing, you are going to miss this much of this hose. So it's not a big piece. Now, something we didn't mention earlier, since I'm drawing pictures. To put this bleach in, most trailers, RVs, have this door where you open it up, and there's this big hole You stick your hose down. That's where you're gonna put your bleach, your vinegar in. A lot of them don't have this. They have a city fill where you put your hose to, and they have a valve of some sort that says city or tank fill. So the only way you can get water into that freshwater tank is through this little tiny hole. Well, everybody says, how do I get bleach into that little hole? Because there's a back pressure thing there. What you do is you hold your garden hose, make sure it's empty, hold your garden hose up, fill your garden hose with 2 to 3 to a gallon of bleach, screw in on here, turn it to tank fill, turn your faucet on, and that shoots that bleach that was in the hose right into your fresh tank. So that's how you get it in a system that doesn't have just a big open spot where you can shove the hose in. That make sense? Whoa,
Doesn't to
excellent.
me. There's a
I did
beautiful
good
picture
then.
there.
It's actually not too bad for me.
Okay.
Okay, now it's back to you.
Well, I'm not trying to hurry it up. I just wanted to start talking. I mean, you've been doing a really great job here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the grading system I'm on.
So anyway, if we're done with water systems, the next one is appliances. And before he gets into all of the appliance stuff, I want to touch again on something he mentioned. Something we do, and I think most companies do. Again, I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to promote the idea. We do a spring tune-up. And in the fall, we call it a fall tune-up. To me, it's very important. So that's why if you are buying a used coach, or a new coach for that matter, in Oregon, and as is, I'm sure, all states, because I think it's a federal law, if you sell an RV, you have to test the LP system for leaks before you sell it. Now, a lot of people that are private owners selling their RV, they don't know this, but dealers do. And we LP test all of our coaches before we sell them to make sure that they're tight and not leaking. I've seen coaches that have blown up. I saw a wilderness trailer, both walls were blown out on it. Very interesting. They went about 100 feet. It's amazing what propane can do. And your coach is moving. So as a safety feature, we recommend you doing a spring tune-up every year, and part of that for us is doing an LP system test. We do a manometer. It's a drop-down test, and we test to make sure that the system is tight and not leaking. There are federal standards for that. We do that. The spring tune-up also inspects your appliances, cleans the burners, checks your plumbing system, does a roof inspection. We check your chassis. There's a whole bunch of stuff we do. And the appliances, the manufacturers, like for your refrigerator, they require an annual inspection and burner cleaning. So our spring tune-up does that. So we're kind of addressing these annual issues that require a technician to do that looking. And I would really recommend, even if your coach is a year old and you had it done when you bought it, you've also driven it down the road, it's flexed, you've used it, you may have a small stress-related leak in your system and you won't know about it until it's too late. So I highly recommend that from some dealer you have this done every year.
To de-winterize before you brought it in for the overall check?
We charge $100 for 2 hours of labor to do this inspection. It needs to be presented to us in working condition. Excuse me. Did that answer your question? There was one other thing I was going to talk about. I did what you did.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We can always come back.
Yeah, I'm brain dead here. So, okay, I guess all that chlorine I've been using is getting my head.
I think it was the pickle juice, the
Yeah.
vinegar.
So,
Okay, so he was talking about propane. my first couple years in this industry, I kept hearing these old timers talk about propane spiders, and I thought it was a joke. I thought they were talking like we've always heard wall stretchers. You always send the guy over to get the wall stretcher. He's gone an hour and comes back and he's mad because finally somebody told him there is no such thing. They do have these little spiders, and I don't know what the name of it is because it's probably about that long and I couldn't pronounce it anyways. They have these little spiders that like to get up in water heaters mainly, but they can get in refrigerators. Very seldom we see them in furnaces. It's a long way to go for them. They will build a nest right in the burn chamber, right in where the propane comes out of the orifice and goes into the tube to go into the burn chamber. This nest is, this web, I swear, is probably the strongest thing I've ever seen in my life, because you physically cannot blow it out with 140 pounds of air. You have to get in there. We take these apart, and this is part of the stuff we do in spring tune-up, is we clean all the orifices out. You have to get in there, and you take like a baby bottle brush, and you have to brush these things out. They are that hard. We can usually tell if somebody has that because they come in 10, 11 months after they've owned it, and they're mad because the side of their trailer's starting to turn black. And we mentioned to them, hey, we're gonna go ahead and get this fixed for you. But just so you know, if you haven't maintained and checked for spiders, the first thing to do is they think we're lying, and they say there's no spiders in my stuff. Something's wrong with the water heater. So we go out there, clean the spider web out. We want to charge them 40 or 50 bucks for our time. And the first thing they do is say, will you guys put that web in there? We are way too busy to keep little spider webs around to stick in things to take pictures. So usually you've bought it here, and the first thing we do is we just pay for it. We absorb the cost, and we say, hey, we'll just use this as a learning experience the next time you know. And usually we never see that person back for that issue. And one guy may have never had the issue. The other guy, depending on where he lives, he has it happen every 6 months. So there are propane spiders out there. Walk around, open your water heater, check to make sure it's clean. Make sure that hornets haven't made a big old mud dauber nest in there, or hornet's nest. Get all that stuff cleaned out. Refrigerator compartment. Most, unless you have a high line that has a household style refrigerator in it, which is starting to get popular, you're going to have a gas and 110 volt operated and 12 volt operated refrigerator that finds its way in there. Mice, we had one where the guy brought it in. It was a 5 or 6 year old unit. He wasn't claiming that anything was wrong except his refrigerator. I know some of you have heard this, but the technician opened the refrigerator little latches, went to pull the door off, and about 5 gallons of hazelnut shells fell out on the ground. And a squirrel, he lived in some area where they had all these oak trees, had decided that the top of that refrigerator, since this guy kept this thing plugged in, was about 72, 75 degrees year long. And that if he chewed through that little screen on the top of the reefer vent, he could just come and go and sit in there and eat hazelnuts all winter long. So keep an eye. Cleanliness is a good thing. Like I say, it's never gonna break in your driveway. It always does it when you're on your camp trip. So, and like I say, that's all stuff we check on. We're not trying to sell the spring tune-up. The guy down the street probably has something that does the same, calls it something different. We're just saying that's stuff we offer that if you don't want us to do it, please do it yourself. We see a lot of units come in here. I've had people say, no, you're kidding me. I've seen units come in here that are less than a year old that look like they're 20 years old. Tree scratches down the sides, mold growing off the top, doors smashed, drawers hanging out. But the customer's okay with that. That's how they camp. It's what they do. But of course, they're buying one every 2 or 3 years when a lot of us can make that same trailer last 8, 10, 12, 15 years. Or unless you're like my wife and decide that every 6 months the next newest one is the coolest one, and we have to have that one. If she sees this, I am in trouble.
Yeah. I remembered what I forgot we're talking about propane and the LP system. It's very interesting that the government, well, not the government, but the propane industry started broadcasting a few years ago a revelation. Used to be, if you smelled propane, you were told to open windows and this and that. And they discovered that propane, if you have a leak in your coach and you walk into it, and, oh, whoa, propane. Don't turn any switches on or off or anything. Don't open the windows. Just walk out. And the reason they don't want you opening the windows anymore is because they have determined that if you have a screen on the window, the propane will not pass through the screen. So opening that window does absolutely nothing for you. So if you smell propane, you walk out the door, you leave the door and the screen door open, go around and turn your propane off, and go for a walk. Let it air out, and then come back and figure out where your gas leak is, or call for repairs. Another thing that he was talking about is these propane spiders. They like that odor that they put in propane. It's a methyl mercaptan, and they smell that and they like it, so they want to live right there because they like that smell. There are companies that put out bug screens for your appliances, and yes, we do sell them, but we want to caution you, if you read the fine print under the fine print, it tells you that you cannot use these screens if you're using the appliance. So, and the reason is, they have found through lawsuits and tests for loss of life that if you, let's say your water heater or your furnace, especially it started with a furnace, you put this screen over your furnace and then you cycle the furnace, there is enough back pressure in that screen that some of the exhaust finds its way into the coach, not out this side of the coach. So you can increase the carbon monoxide content in your air, and you breathe fine, you just don't get any oxygen, and you just start turning colors and you're dead. So you don't want to do that. So if you do want to put a screen on, be cognizant of the fact that you have to take it off during the year where you're going to be using the appliance. Otherwise, you could be getting into trouble.
So you're talking about the screen that you put over the propane exhaust?
On the outside. Now, but also what we found on those, that wire's pretty big. So if you think about it, if you smash that out and laid it flat, that's covering 10 to 12% of your exhaust coming out. Not only is it keeping the exhaust from coming out, it keeps the heat from coming out. Well, furnaces are built with ducts. And somewhere in this plenum, which is the box it's built in, is a high limit switch for overheating, which is another protection thing. If that heat that is not heating that plenum that has to be able to go out is restricted, that heat starts to build up in the plenum and it keeps popping that furnace off. We've had people come in and they'll say, we don't know what's going on, and the first thing I'll ask is, did you buy one of those things to go over your exhaust? And they'll say, yes, we did. Not always, but most of the time, they figure there's a square footage, there's this mathematical scientific thing that I'm sure Dan has right up here and could quote at any time of the day, but they figure out how much air has to go in and out of that box to keep that little switch from overheating. And sometimes they'll get it so tight that just that little bit of air not being able to leave will make that thing light and unlight, light and unlight. It'll do it. Every 30 seconds it'll come on and off, because that little high limit switch is popping off, it cools down, it pops right back on. So your furnace says light, don't light, light. So, and manufacturers, the warranty manufacturers of the furnace will ask us now. We'll say we have a problem with a customer's furnace. Furnace seems to be the big issue. They tell you if you show up with a furnace problem to take it off the outside. We didn't see it. Not that we're going to lie to them, but if we tell them yes, it's their little piece of an out they need to say, well, we're not going to fix this furnace. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of the world has come to. They're all looking for that little piece of an out. And we don't want to give them that little piece. We want to be able to go in there and be truthful and say, he doesn't have one, this is the issue, will you pay for it? And they say yes, and everybody's happy. So they look cool.
I think I also bought a screen for, I got one for the propane exhaust, so now I know about that. But I think I also got one for the water heater. So is that one okay? Or
Well, they're, again, we don't really care for any of them if you're going to be using it, because that heat, that water heater's got a huge flame that goes off in there. Sounds like a jet plane taking off sometimes. If it sounds like a jet plane, come see us. We need to do an air mixture adjustment on that. I'll have her do it. Again, that heat is blowing up through a tube to heat water, and that wants to come out that square hole. And if you're blocking it in, what can happen is it can overheat the door. It can overheat where it's mounted to the sidewalls. They're great, but they're for storage, and they're mainly for yellow jackets, because they won't keep that propane spider out. He's a little tiny thing.
This gentleman had a question.
Sorry, I went long, didn't I?
No, you're fine.
You mentioned if you have a propane leak or whatever, if you're out camping, shut it off and walk out. Is there any system or ways to check if you're on your own to check your fittings and find where that leak is coming from?
That's yes and no, but you can do a soap test. Most of the soaps will etch copper over a period of time, so they make LP detector fluid that doesn't react with the copper. But the problem is the propane system, you don't see it, it's a difficult thing to do. A lot of the propane is not accessible, and it's in areas that you wouldn't know to look. It's not rocket science. You just have to follow it. And there's a cast iron, black iron manifold under the center of the trailer, and they all just go out from there, and they come up through the floor, and they weave around. And so it can be done, but there's a lot to it. It could be a valve left open. It could be like in the oven, you have a safety valve. If it sticks, then you're going to have gas leaking out of the oven, and you're not going to know how to test for that. It could be a crack in a line underneath a compartment, and you'd have to pull the liner of the compartment out to get it. I've had that with campers. Propane it's a difficult one to do, and it takes experience. A lot of times.
Oh, go ahead.
A lot of times, years ago, they had a manual pilot assembly on stovetops, had a valve, and people would forget to leave that valve open, and so that little tiny flame in the middle of the stove would go on for days, and you'd have a problem. Now it's usually a valve failing or a broken nut or something, and you just have to be tenacious and trace it down. And we have machines they're like probe sensors that can smell the propane, and we go through the coach, and it still takes us an hour or 2 hours. When I was young and doing tech work, I remember I had one pickup camper, I spent 2 days on it trying to find the leak. It can be that difficult because they bury these things in the very back corners. So, am I answering this right?
Yeah,
So
you can.
Just shut your propane off and get to the shop.
Yeah, it's not worth it. My dad lost 2 tractors because he was too cheap to put antifreeze in them, and a new tractor engine is a gallon of antifreeze was $5. The engine was $4,000. You're throwing away one after another. Just we'll do the job.
But now 95% of the leaks, when you walk in and you smell it bad, are usually customer caused because they just accidentally rubbed up against the front burner knob on the stove before you went to Safeway to buy steaks. Most of the time you come in, you're supposed to just leave, go out and shut it off, but once it stops, go in and check your stove and oven. Those 4 knobs, they build a little wire thing that goes in front of those knobs. My wife always says, oh, that's a great towel holder. Trailers are like 2,000 square feet. When you're going past each other in the kitchen, you usually always turn on one of those burners about a quarter of the way. So check that first. And you may say, oh, that was it. Our trip's not, we're not going to have to do this trip without propane. But every now and again, if you get a gas leak and it's small enough, we've spent 3, 4, 5 hours. We have a training class where we train people that have never been in the RV industry or have been in production or part of it. And there's a lot of gas leaks, believe it or not, on brand new units that come across from, they weren't leaking when they left Indiana. When they hit here, now they are. And that's a good spot for those kids to learn that gas leak isn't always easy to fix. And I've had gas leaks almost bring you to tears. I always tell, I hand them a thing of that spray, and I tell them, if you're not a drinking man, you will be by the time you find this one. Because
You guys check that before.
they hate them.
Before we buy it, it's been checked. LP's good.
There's a technician sitting right over there, and she's shaking her head yes. It's one of the worst things we hate to do is try to find a little tiny gas leak.
I'm not promoting this company, but I've worked here a long time. I've been in the industry forever. I have a lot of admiration for how the management has approached this. We are fanatics about our used coaches and our news coaches, and it's a serious thing with this company. And I mean, that's part of why I'm not. I just feel this way, but we're good about it. We do.
She's got a question. You know the one. You know the lady back there.
You do check the propane system in the spring tune-up.
Yes.
So, and then if you were to find a
We
leak,
actually do 3 or 4 tests. We do a drop test. We do a working test. We do to make sure that your regulator's good.
Okay.
Because again, there's all sorts of things to do with propane more than just having gas run through a line.
Right.
It has to all be at the right pressure, and the right working pressure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you have a year where you cut off and you won't do the spring tune-ups? Like if a coach is 20 years old?
Nope. We'll do a spring tune-up on everything. Just be ready for what we tell you. And don't bring, what we have a hard time with is we explain to people, this is a spring tune-up, this is what we're going to do. So then we call them and say, well, your refrigerator doesn't work, your water heater doesn't work, your roof's rotten, your floor's rotten. And they're like, well, we know the fridge doesn't work, but we thought the spring tune-up you were going to figure out what was wrong with it. No, that's a check and assessment and let you know what we find, not to do any repairs. Because yeah, and every now and again we'll get a 1986 Nomad in, and the guys think, ooh, I'm going to be able to find some stuff wrong with this, and they're all mad because he bought that thing brand new, kept his seals up, kept his tires up, did everything right, kept it under a cover, and when they back it in the bay, everybody runs around to look at it, and they're like, wow. Because even the green shag carpet in it is in good shape. I mean, that's why that comes around to there's some that are 2 years old that are so rough I would never buy it, and some that are 30 years old that are, this thing is beautiful. You've seen them.
Yeah.
I get the young guys and we pull in an 86 or an 88 country coach, and they all start stomping around mad because they got to work on this ancient thing. Well, I started in 1988 working on those coaches, and I remember them being, that was the top of the line.
Yep.
That thing had more switches over the driver's seat. I bet you there was 300, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Had 3 panels full of switches and that thing was so cool. And now the young kids are like, can I fix that with my app? No. Leo liked that joke.
Yeah.
We have a smart gentleman up north he's pretty techie. He's shown me a lot of stuff on apps and
Spray
For spiders, is there a spray on the market that works, or is there no spray? That's a home remedy thing somebody's
No,
talking about?
she's asking about to keep the spiders out. There's a thing they say, and I can't say it works or don't work, except I've never seen one that's had this done have a spider in it. They say if you take a cat flea collar or a dog flea collar, cut a chunk off and lay it in behind your refrigerator or you're out in your water heater door, that these spiders don't like that smell, the chemical that's in it, so they never come in there. Does it work? I don't know. But I can say if I've ever pulled a water heater door down and there's a cat collar in there, I've never found one with a spider in it. But I'm sure there's some scientists that could tell me I'm completely wrong and those spiders love everything. But from what I've seen, it's true. And you don't have to go buy the $30 one from, the Hearts double throwdown. Go to the dollar store, get one of the $2 ones. Works great. It's about time for you to talk about something. I've just been a pig today on.
So the last thing I want to talk about, the last thing on our list is generators. And I'm just going to make a blanket statement. We believe, like we said at the beginning of this conversation, that we think you guys should be out in that coach every month or two. If you have a generator, the problem with the corn additive in our fuel is it accelerates the breakdown of the fuel. If the fuel is 4 months old or older, it will start gumming. And if you let it sit in your own generator, they don't sell rebuild kits for your carburetor. They sell you a new $400 carburetor. So the only way around this is to start the generator once a month and let it run for an hour or so. Turn the air conditioner on, heat pump or fan or whatever. Just put a load on it and let the generator run once a month for an hour or so. If you do that, then you're going to save the $800 that you have to spend in the spring to get the new carburetor installed and new plugs. It's really important with our fuels today that you run the engine once a month. If you have a diesel, it's not that big a deal. If you have a propane, it's not that big a deal. But it's still nice to exercise stuff. You should do that.
You ready? She's got her hand up. Go.
You should just move in next to her.
No, well, my unit has a propane generator, and I did go through the Owen generator warranty book and all of that stuff. I mean, I went online and just downloaded because I know zip that stuff. But it did say to exercise it once a month. But if you're propane, you really have to do that.
Well, it doesn't hurt. He's mainly talking about our unleaded fuels. The breakdown for diesel and propane is different. It just gets oil running through it. Plus, it works your transfer switch. You have a short cord that comes into a box with relays. Then you have your generator that comes into that box. And then one that comes out to your power panel, your breaker panel. It exercises those relays because when you start your generator, it opens that relay. We very seldom see stuff break from overuse.
Yeah, see, mine has
It's usually not use.
It has a plug-in for the shore, and when you unplug from the shore, you plug it into your generator.
Got a $500 transfer switch breaking down. You have to plug it in where a transfer switch does it for you, but it's good to run that.
It's good to run it anyhow. Okay.
Yeah, it's good to run it.
Well, I've been doing it.
Just hang out back there.
Will do.
I'm done.
Okay, so now we're just going to kind of open up to just whatever you can think of, let us know. Hold on, he's coming. We're going to have to get a faster microphone guy. I can see this.
I either missed it or something, but the sheet here talks about inspect interior, and we didn't talk about the window tracks.
we kind of talked about it just a little earlier when I said to go inside and open the cabinets, check for water.
Okay,
That's what you're looking for as far as for seals. Sometimes your roof will look great. Visually, it looks wonderful. You go inside and notice your extra blankets or the towels in the kitchen or in the bathroom are soaking wet. Sometimes a human eye can't pick out these little spot over here on the corner that looks good. So then we know we have a leak in that area. We get back up there and start probing better, and we'll find where this little corner's lifted and you can't see it. And that little corner, of course, is, well, what happens is that water gets in that towel and then sits in that shelf. That shelf swells up, radiates into your stiles. It's swelled up, and within a couple weeks, wherever your trailer was built, because I don't care what trailer you own, what manufacturer, none of them can have a meeting and say, hey, how about we all use the same color of wood?
yeah.
Of course, that wouldn't be as exciting because there's so many pretty colors out there, but
On the clean and dry lube window tracks, so you're just spraying it in those...
just spray a little of
where
that
the
dry lube
sliders-
right in that little fuzzy or rubber window track.
Okay,
Moisture will attach to the windows. It's the coldest part of the trailer. That water will get down in there and you'll get a little black.
yeah.
So take you some paper towels and the end of a toothbrush and just kind of keep it out of there.
Okay. And the fresh air? Just open the
Yeah.
fresh air.
Yeah. Any more questions before I go over my last little 2-minute?
And they're telling you to put foam in and steel wool, and I don't know what we should be doing.
If you live in an area where you're susceptible to mice, or if you keep it next to your hay barn, because we have people that have farms and that's where they keep them. If they want to get in there, they're going to get in there. I've heard you can put steel wool. The problem with that spray foam is they just chew through it and make a little tunnel in it. So if you ever get underneath your fifth wheel or trailer, you'll see there's quite a bit of holes. You just do the best you can. They do have, and I've heard they work really good. If you are next to the hay barn and there's electric out there, they make these they make some kind of a sonic noise that nobody can hear except for mice and rats, and it keeps them out. And we have a grass seed farmer that keeps his in a grass seed. I mean, when he walks in, the mice are scurrying. He's never had a mouse one in his, and he has one of those sonic wave mouse things. And I forget what the name of it is, Eradicator, or... So he swears by him. I've never had one to try to use one.
So keep your trailer in your driveway in a residential area, the chances of getting mice are pretty low.
Pretty slim.
Right?
Pretty slim. And I always tell people, don't leave. They're going to go for food. They usually don't go for comfort. They go for food. If you're an every month camper, don't leave your spaghetti and top ramen out there. You can leave your canned goods. Bring your cereal, flour, all that stuff. Get you a little tote. Bring it in with you. Get it out of there. If it's out of there, they've got no reason to go in. If they go in, they're not going to stay. There's nothing there for them to eat. That answer, kinda? Yeah, it's just like a house. If the robber wants to get in, he'll find a way in. Like I say, you can put sheet metal around as much as you want. Most of the bottoms of fifth wheels and trailers are just a corrugated plastic. If they want in, all they got to do is somehow get to that plastic off your axle or your spring hangers. They'll chew right through the plastic bottom and then go in. If they want in there, they're going to get in. But they'll climb up your power cord, your water hose. They'll climb up your tires. Anything touches the ground, they can climb up. Yeah, they're acrobats. Any other questions? Yep, there he is.
Kind of hydraulic, and one of the jacks, when it's the store, it doesn't want to come off on itself.
What I would do is, first thing I would do is try, he has a jack that's not raising all the way. First thing I would do is try an extensive cleaning of the shaft, of your...
WD-40.
WD-40, and then get some microfine, superfine steel wool. You can rub it on paint. It doesn't hurt paint. Give it a little wipe with that, wipe it off, hit it with some WD-40, pry it up and down a couple times, do it again. Most of the time that fixes that. Okay, my last thing, humidity. Dan loves these things. Dries airs. They're really cool until you take it to go do something and forget that you had this on the kitchen table. Zip it. Unless you're like me and forget you have it in a Ziploc bag sitting on the kitchen counter. These are a little more. They smell good. My wife swears by them. You hang them up anywhere in your trailer off the doorknob. When it gets full of water, you take it out and throw it in the garbage. Like I say, we live in ours, so we get a lot of moisture from the human body. So, and then you get two people in there with a dog or a cat. A dog will actually expel almost as much as a human just because of their breathing rate. They're breathing so much. So, humidity. We've seen a lot of trailers within a year come in and people swear they got leaks because there's black substance on the walls. It just needs to be cleaned off. The trailer needs to be dried out. And usually it's full-timers that have a bad time with humidity. Yes?
We have one of those round, put it in.
Dehumidifier? No, they don't have a moving part. It's basically just it's like a refrigerator working backwards. It just draws the moisture to the fins, and either it'll dry it. A real humidifier will pull the humidity out of the air and drop it into a bin where you have to dump it. It's probably like what we put in our gun safes. Sorry, I said gun. I don't know if I can get that by, but
Is it one that you plug in?
Yeah. It doesn't have a capture.
Yeah. All that is
I have a
is
small
a
one
heat
for my.
source. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all they are, is basically a little heating element to heat a little bit of area. Well, you don't notice it, but it does heat up. Yeah.
Does it seem to work?
Then I love it. Wow. Right. I have a hard time in mine because my wife decided we had to have a 300-gallon hot water heater built in the side so she can take her normal 40-minute shower. If she sees that, I'm also dead. I keep forgetting this guy's here.
We've got a comment on the Facebook page.
Yeah. So we have a lot. Usually after one of her showers, it's pretty steamy in our little. So we burn one of those up pretty fast. Okay, is everybody good? Well, back here in the back. The roof fans? Most RVs have a fan by the shower for that reason. And yes, you're good to.
But my shower is separating my toilet room, so
Turn the one on the bathroom, open the toilet door, and let it suck it out. Yeah, most of those fans by a shower actually don't blow in, they pull out. And that's why somebody will always usually say, why is there a fan by my shower? For the mice? Okay. Right. Well, that's one person saying that this mouse thing works. Yeah, they have all sorts of stuff to try to keep critters out of your stuff. Usually we hear about squirrels more than mice. Okay. Is everybody anxious to get out of here and enjoy the rain so we can have the sun tomorrow? 'Cause last time I checked, it's supposed to be beautiful tomorrow. So, thanks for coming.
Thank
Dan,
you, folks.
you're wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you next month. Thanks.